Sup, y'all? Welcome back to Half in the Bag. I'm your host, Churdleys. We got some new people here. A lot of new people here. You guys know I like more than just soul-crushing drone music, right? Like, for example, experimental hip-hop. Experimental hip-hop, also known as the enlightened Redditors' favorite genre of music to stimulate their bulbous minds to. Now, experimental hip-hop is sort of like a fine wine, you know? You don't drink wine, you appreciate it. You swig it in your mouth, you gargle it, you swish it, you spit it back, you dip your balls in it, you live it. It's not for everyone, but if you're one of the enlightened ones, then you live by it. But let's say you're somewhere in the middle. You hate today's trap rap, but you are terrified to get into this weird-ass genre, which I completely understand. And you read the title, you're not dumb. I'm here to be your guide as I walk you through the valley of the shadow. I'm not putting that in. Who fucking wrote that in the script? Experimental hip-hop is a term that has now become a bit overused. Basically means any kind of hip-hop or rap that's non-traditional, like production-wise, lyrically, or even with like the delivery of it. With today's landscape, experimental hip-hop has become more inclusive of a genre than past years. Since experimental music has its roots in ear-drilling noise and head-splitting screams, it gets combined with boom-bap production and clever word flow of hip-hop with a teaspoon of electronic music just dashed in there as a final touch. Throw it in the oven at 420 degrees for 7 minutes, and boom, you got this shit. Many people who try to get friends into the genre can fall into the category of tolerance bias, trademark, where you've been bumping all this weird music and you search for weirder and weirder and weirder music, progressively getting more experimental until you're bumping something practically unlistenable. And when you recommend your friend a record, you've grown a callous to the music that you listen to. Often more tamer stuff that you listen to is even the crazy shit for like normal people. Thus the tolerance bias, trademark. Hopefully I don't display that too much in this video, but I'll try my damnedest. It's sort of muddy, so I'm gonna pop in and try my best to get you to the end game of this series of steps I've created here. So in this video, I will do my best to give you 10 albums that I think you should listen to, preferably in order from least experimental to most that I give you in this video to get you into experimental hip-hop. But really quick before I start, I just want to say that you do not have to like any music. If you like trap rap or your country music, then you do nuts to butts, dude. If you don't want to learn about experimental hip-hop or get forced anything, I get it, dude. God bless. Best of luck, you know? Okay, they're gone. Okay, for the remaining enlightened Redditors, another disclaimer. These are probably not the most experimental albums ever, and maybe even my non-experimental albums you think are too much, or maybe you don't think they're experimental enough, you know. It's my opinion. Let me know your opinion in the comments. Start a dialogue, tell me your list, back it up, don't just tell me you're gay and move on with your day. That's a bar. Okay, are they gone? To those remain, let's get into some experimental hip-hop gamers. So the first step on the staircase to becoming a professional Redditor. Yes, I'm making fun of Reddit, man. Young Father's Cocoa Sugar. This album, in my opinion, is the perfect first step in your journey. If you were to ask a war-hardened Daughters fan if this was experimental, they'd probably say this is some total Weenie Hut Jr. shit. But in my opinion, this combines very traditional alternative R&B and sprinkles experimental elements throughout the entire album. It's not necessarily hip-hop, but it has hip-hop elements that get combined with the R&B flavor and the experimentation that I think is a great place to start. The distorted time stretch drums on Fee-Fi, the alarming synths and train-like drums on Wow, and the broken piano-like synths and found sound sampling on Wire are perfect examples in my mind of sprinkling experimentation flair to make the album just that more interesting. So Young Father's Cocoa Sugar is the perfect place to start. Not to mention the album cover is just fantastic, and at a reasonable 37 minutes, this record, you know, kind of fucks. Next, we have Kanye West's The Life of Pablo. T-Lop is an album many would consider quite experimental, but I don't see it as too crazily experimental, but experimental it is. The album fuses traditional trap and hip-hop styles with Kanye West classic style and some more untraditional forms of synth, instruments, and even vocals. The heavy drums and minimalist presentation on ultra light beam, the strange synth sample and screaming background sounds of feedback, and the ripped horror movie soundtrack of Freestyle 4, The Life of Pablo combines so many genres in such a beautiful way. Even the non-experimental hip-hop listeners have probably heard, or at least know about The Life of Pablo. Kanye West is a cultural phenomenon, and it's even more interesting looking back in hindsight, seeing his recent antics recently. You can see an earlier glimpse of, you know, the peaks of what he's, you know, experiencing today. And this record doubles the length of the previous one at over an hour long. This is definitely a record I'd put on during a long drive somewhere and you could just relax and be like, this is some weird shit, boys. After Teal Up, I got something that most people probably wouldn't think would be here. Brockhampton's Iridescence. A criminally underrated album in my opinion, but a word I don't hear get flung around a lot with this album is experimental. I personally feel like this is quite an experimental outing for the band, and one that has unfortunately not stuck around with their newer releases. Some people say Brockhampton don't really get experimental, but when they get weird on this record, shit fucking slaps, dude. The buzzing bass synths and industrial bass hits of New Orleans, the distorted screaming, melting synths and car crash kicks of District and Jover. If you have never heard this, listen to it and be shocked that this is the same band that made the TikTok song Sugar. It's fucking wild. A criminally underrated project in my opinion, with genuinely great and experimental highlights that I think could go toe to toe with some of the best experimental hip hop releases. And it's not all experimental for the whole way through. There are slow and genuinely touching moments on this record. So it's just crazy enough to get you intrigued, but it's not too crazy that you're gonna get lost in the slew of fucking wild shit. And at the average 50-minute runtime, this is definitely an album that'll have your mind going on a roller coaster ride for the entire listen. I highly recommend. And, you know, one of my favorite albums ever. I don't like saying that because people make fun of Brockhampton stans, but I'm not a stan. And speaking of crazy the whole way through, Injury Reserve's self-titled album. Now, before I start talking about the music, I do want to take a quick second to say RIP to Groggs, who recently passed away. And if you'd like to donate to his GoFundMe, the link will be in the description. But I do want to champion them for a minute for creating a genuinely off-the-beaten-path album with their self-titled release. Definitely a risk for a band at their size that's just getting signed. But they seem to flip the script where instead of adding experimentation to traditional hip-hop, they flip it on its head and add hip-hop to experimentation. The constant scream samples and piano stabs of Corona and Lime. Oh fuck Corona, I just realized that. The Rain Dance instrumental that explodes into a crazy distorted mess of Jawbreaker. And the better Tokyo Drift sampling actual car sounds of Jailbreak the Tesla. There are crazy and wild productions and performances all over this record. I really recommend you listening to this with an open mind and expect to get rim-jogged by this group's creativity and progressive sound. Like, there is a legit track that is legit a YouTube text-to-speech tutorial of how to make a rap song. You can't make this shit up. And at a quick 30-minute runtime, you're not going to be there all day, but with this short amount of time, they leave one hell of an impression. So I highly recommend listening to Injury Reserves. I believe it was their debut record, so, you know, RIP to Groggs. Again, just sucks, dude. It's fucking 2020 sucks. Can we just cancel 2020? After this year's over, can we just like erase it from the record books? Like, we'll have 2019 redacted, then 2021. Let's just fuck this year. Up next on the chopping block, we have Buttermilk Jesus himself, JPEGMAFIA. All my heroes are cornballs. Now, some might say Veteran is the more experimental or whatever. It's my video. Make your own if you think I'm wrong. I'm fucking with you. Alright, man, let's have a discussion in the comments about your thoughts. But this album is a crazy mix of experimental boom bap distortion and almost lo-fi hip-hop aesthetics. This record was indeed a stylistic change from his old records, but a style that was welcomed with open arms by the fans. With the distorted crowd samples and non-stop moving and shifting of Jesus Forgive Me, I Am a Thought, the lullaby turned industrial rock bomb siren of Keenan vs. Kel, and the multiple beat switches in differing styles of post-verified lifestyle. Don't be intimidated by the 18 tracks of the track list. It only comes out to be a 45-minute listening experience with multiple interludes and switches to keep the album fresh constantly. And it just goes to show how talented of a musician Peggy is, and how he is going to go down as one of the greats in hip-hop history. I will guarantee it. I'll bet my left ass cheek in 5 years. I think I'd go to say he'll be the next Kanye. Hopefully not the insane version. Fuck, dude. Kanye West is running for president, dude. We got nothing, man. Fuck. Speaking of artists who were unapologetically themselves, Vince Staples with Big Fish Theory. This is a trap album that was pumped with steroids. The instrumentation can go from being somewhat normal to being some of the most insane and intense instrumentals I have ever heard in my fucking life. And one of the more mainstream artists to achieve success with this more weird and abnormal presentation. I can't think of anyone besides like Kanye West to have like be so mainstream but have such a weird and abstract sound. Maybe like, yeah, I can't think of anyone. Like Tyler the Creator, but he wasn't like too big when he was releasing like Cherry Bomb and fucking like Goblin or anything like that. With the dancehall inspired and breakneck pace of Love Can Be, the piercing percussion and synths of Samo, and possibly the most insane song of a mainstream artist I've ever heard, with a fucking Kendrick Lamar feature on it. What the fuck? Who switched out all the real instrumentals as an act of eco-terrorism? But this album is definitely a trip for the more trap-loving individuals, and at a short 36 minutes, it's a bite-sized portion of traditional trap mixed with face-melting noise and bass. I recommend it. If anyone has a copy of Big Fish Theory on vinyl, can you please send it to me? I would really appreciate that. Now, boys, the moment you've all been waiting for. 2 times on the list, Kanye West, Yeezus. This is widely regarded as the experimental hip-hop album. When you ask someone, what is the first album you think of when I say experimental hip-hop? 9 times out of 10, it's Yeezus. I don't think it's going to take much convincing to get someone to believe that Yeezus belongs on this list. Not to mention, like Vince Staple, he's mainstream, but he's quite underground. This is literally one of the biggest artists in the world, exposing everyone to this new genre of crazy fucking wild music, with the legendary opening screaming synth line of On Sight, the tribal drums, and the insane riff of Black Skinhead, one of my favorite songs, and the guitar fuzzed vocals and the monumental horns of Blood on the Leaves. That's only mentioning a few tracks on this album. This album has incredible experimental moments and comes together to be one of my favorite albums of all time, hands down. Although it's not the most experimental ever, it's a concise 40 minutes, all killer, no filler record, in my opinion at least. And it exposed a lot of new people to this sound, because experimental hip-hop is a very, at the time, it was a very small subgenre. Not many people were, fucking with it. But, Kanye definitely shone a light onto this fucking weird-ass shit, and I give him props for that. Even though some people think he executed it poorly, that's their opinion, and this is mine, so good job. All killer, no filler. Speaking of all killer, no filler, Danny Brown Atrocity Exhibition. This album is something of underground legend. People who listen and review this album have usually nothing bad ever to say about it. For example, my boy Luke on Demand did a video where I was in it reviewing Danny Brown's Atrocity Exhibition, so watch that video. And this album is nothing short of stunning from an instrumental and lyrical side, with the stories of the downfall of drug abuse and using to such an extent, paired with perfectly executed and uniquely strange, sometimes horrifying beats, like the confusing alt-rock slow burner Downward Spiral, the blaring horns and zany boom-bap drums of Ain't It Funny, and one of my favorites off the album, the genuinely terrifying and industrial banger Pneumonia. Listing all these elements on paper, you would never expect all these clashing styles to work, but since Danny Brown is such a fucking legend, he executes it perfectly. This 47-minute industrial psychedelic experience is a must-listen to those who truly love experimental hip-hop, and if you made it this far, you'd like it. This is the kind of hip-hop you listen to if you want some teeth in its mouth. Coming close to the end on the list, now second to last, we have Clippings. There existed an addiction to blood. Clippings' music sounds exactly how their name sounds. It's clipping, it's distorted, it's cool, it's professional, and it's experimental. In every single track on this album, there's something that can be found in a nightmare. And it doesn't help that frontman Daveed Diggs is a master storyteller, describing in detail these extremely violent, sexual, and intense feelings, adding to the detail of the nightmare, like a literal fever dream. Like the literal horror movie scene in Nothing Is Safe, the terrifying sense of impending doom and screaming synths on Club Down, and the creepy boom-bap drums turning into an inaudible wall of noise, becoming almost unlistenable, of La Mala Ordina. With all the members of Clipping have some sort of professional music training like sound design or acting, they create a professionally dirty music anomaly. I cannot recommend this record enough. For real, listen to the shit if you've got this far. It is a wild, I cannot even begin to describe some of the shit that fucking happens. There are too many highlights on this album for me to do it justice. For example, there's a song where the instrumental is literally playing through a car window that's moving. These guys are fucking masters at sound design. It sucks you in, and you are locked in a fucking chair with your fucking hands strapped down, your eyeballs taped open. It's fucking awesome, dude. But, ladies and gentlemen, the final album in our 10 album list. Y'all motherfuckers knew it was coming. Death Grips, Bottomless Pit. Let's go, baby. What can I say that has not been said about these absolute fucking mad lads? The production of Flatlander and Zach Hill, complementing the vocals of MC Rye, perfectly creating some of the most abrasive and generally accessible music I've ever heard. If you've been on the fence with Death Grips, I 100% recommend listening. I know it's a bit of a meme to listen to them, but They are genuinely fantastic. Most people would recommend starting at Money Store, which I can see. I think it's a toss-up between Money Store and Bottomless Pit. I personally feel that Bottomless Pit has more bangers and a lot more, hip-hop elements to it, but it's a toss-up, it's different strokes, different folks. The head-splitting noise rock opening track of Giving Bad People Good Ideas, the unsettling synth and booming bass of 80808, and the punk rock inspired title track Bottomless Pit. That's only a few, where every single track has an experimental element differing from either extremely abrasive and loud, disorienting or weird, or a combination of the two. This 39-minute record, in my opinion, is one of the best experimental hip-hop releases I have ever heard. It's so experimental that I almost can't consider it hip-hop anymore, but that's my opinion. That's how you know you're dealing with some fucked shit. But that is the list. That's the fucking list, boys. Finn! I was kind of doing it as a meme before, but we have a fuck ton of new people. Like, the Caretaker video literally exploded. Like, literally. It went from, I think, 5,000 views. In 3 days, it's almost at 40,000 views. And I have gained almost, I think, 1,000 subs. I've gained 1,000 subs in 2 days. I am genuinely blown away. And thank you all for being here and watching my videos. I really appreciate it. People DMing me and telling me I'm doing a good job, that makes my fucking day. And if you did that, I'm talking to you directly. Thank you. And thank you to everyone that's commenting on my shit, telling your stories. I love hearing people talk about what affected them in the Caretaker video specifically. But even my other videos are getting love, which I so happy. So thank you. I don't want to gush too long because I know it's pretty gay. YouTuber thank yous never sound genuine because they all sound the same, but they kind of do. Just thank you. I appreciate it. I keep fucking hitting. Alright. Well, I appreciate you being here. You specifically sitting right now, laying down, watching this video with your AirPods in, leaning up against your right arm, and, having your mom call you for dinner. I'm talking to you. Yeah, Jeremy. Fuck you. Thank you for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. So, as long as everyone has Googled experimental hip-hop type beat, and you're ready to start a fucking experimental hip-hop album, then I guess you guys are good to go. So, thank you for watching. I do genuinely appreciate it. And from the bottom of my heart, I want you and everyone you know to have a pleasant day.